So good day everyone. So for today's video, I would like to discuss to you about the creative speech productions. So now, let us identify what is impromptu versus extemporaneous. So as adjectives, the difference between extemporaneous and impromptu is that extemporaneous is without a preparation or advanced thought offhand, while impromptu is improvised without prior preparation, planning, or rehearsal. So extemporaneous is unplanned. So let us proceed to impromptu. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of impromptu speech? So let's go for the advantages of impromptu speech. So it shows how good an individual is at thinking for themselves on their feet. So they will not have endless hours to practice and rehearse and cannot seek help or ideas from anyone else. Understandable naman, guys. So let's go for the disadvantages of impromptu speech. So the impromptu speech would not be suitable for important occasions, as very little due to thought or preparation can be given to speech. So it will do doubtless be rough around the edges and may contain inaccuracies. So what are the do's and don'ts of impromptu speech? So do speak loudly enough to be heard by entire audience, even those in the dark back row. Don't keep jumping back and forth through your slides. Either reorganize your talk to avoid this or duplicate the needed slide in the second place where it fits. So don't fidget nervously in front of your audience. So what are the goal of this impromptu speaking? So the purpose of this impromptu session was to practice delivering speeches to an audience on a weekly basis, so as to strengthen public speaking skills and develop confidence. So let's go to extemporaneous. So what is extemporaneous method? So the extemporaneous speech involves the speaker use of notes and some embellishment to deliver a speech. So this delivery where the speaker reads every word from a pre-written speech. And lastly, a memorized speech is the act of memorizing the information in a speech and presenting it without using notes. So let's go to extemporaneous speech tips. First is stick to one presentation structure. So it's a natural ability to speak on a topic without or with little preliminary presentation for a speech. So the best way to develop our extemporaneous style is to use a solid structure like the C1. So the abbreviation stands for statements, evidence, and emotion. So this scheme is a useful tool for you to utilize when you need to speak extemporaneously during a speech. Second is tap into the power of extemporaneous presentation methods. So there might be situations when you feel uncomfortable speaking to a large or not very number of people. So your audience will sense this inner tension during the speech unless you find a way to maintain communication with them. So one of the time-proven means of delivering an excellent speech is to be kind and speak nicely. So keep your contact with people you talk, smile naturally, and visually scan the audience to make them feel that you're confident. So, nandiyo mga times no, kung mag-storya ka sa mga kadaghan ng mga tao, ma-feel ni mga uncomfortable ka. So, ang audience ma-feel nila ay muhang kuan ka ng tension during mag-speech ka. So, dapat mo find yun ka og paagi nga ma-maintain mo ang communication with them. So, when you speak, keep your contact with people, jud kay para ma-feel nila nga ikaw confident ka. Third is don't strive to memorize everything at once. So learning text by heart is a great practice anytime, except when it comes to giving an extemporaneous speech. So memorizing anything you want to pronounce in front of the audience will only distract you from what important the message you want to speak on. You only want to remember words from the notes instead of focusing on the essence of your speech. So the next topic will be manuscript. So reading from a manuscript or manuscript speech is done when a speaker reads to the audience a prepared text or manuscript, which may be prepared by someone else or by the speaker himself or herself. So in reading from a manuscript it doesn't mean that you as a speaker you are the only one who can write or who can wrote your own speech, because in reading from a manuscript there are some instances or there are some situations that public speaker has a busy life or a busy schedule, so that she or he can't write his or her own speech, right? So that is why like politician, di ba, very busy ilahang life so mag-appoint yun na sila og secretary para magbuhat sila sa ilahang speech. For example, an official spokesperson is provided with a proclamation, a formal public announcement, and read it exactly as written. So let's go for the advantages of reading from a manuscript. So first is no single or important words are left out. So when you read a manuscript, dapat wala siya mga important words nga mawala or malaktawan. Second is all significant points are covered and conveyed. So let's go for the disadvantages of reading from a manuscript. So first is the speech tends to sound mechanical and forced or unnatural. Second is the speaker is unavailable to react to the audience's nonverbal cues. And the last is the audience may get bored or disinterested. So, the speaker cannot engage the audience using certain nonverbal cues to enrich the speech. So, syempre, kung dili ka comfy mag-read sa manuscript, the audience may get bored, then the speaker cannot engage the audience using nonverbal to enrich the speech. So next, let's go for the guidelines on reading from a manuscript. So first is write a good speech. So you need to make an exceptional speech that contains logically connected to paragraphs and well-supported topic sentences. And be careful in choosing each word and make sure that your speech conveys a clear message. So in writing a good speech, it means you will follow the principles of speech writing. So in principles of speech writing, you will be able to analyze your audience, and you need to choose correct words, and you need to use a proper grammar. So next is format your speech properly. So in formatting your speech properly, you will read your manuscript. It means dapat readable. So if you read a copy of your speech, ikaw pa lang ang nagbasa, it is easier enough for you to read it. So indent each paragraph and include only 2 to 3 paragraphs per page. Second is write the margin should not be justified so that the words are equally spaced. So since our elementary days, we are already learn naman on how to use margins and also double space between lines. So use only one side of the page. And last is use a font size of 12 points. You can use another font type, but make sure that you can clearly read it. Third is practice your speech repeatedly. Know your speech by heart by practicing it repeatedly. Record yourself and then identify the areas in your speech and in your delivery that need to improve. So, when you speech, dapat daw kinasing-kasing, then practice it repeatedly. Human, i-record ni may mong kaugalingon para makabalog ka, aha ka dapit pwede, aha ka na area sa imong speech nga imong i-improve. Next is look at the audience from time to time. So, do not read a manuscript word for word looking down. So, a glance at the audience when highlighting keywords or when beginning a sentence. So, next topic will be the memorized speech. So, memorizing a speech is usually done by skilled speakers. Most expert professional speakers deliver their speeches from memory. Memorized speech. A speaker gives a memorized speech by committing every word of the speech to memory and then delivering it in the front of the audience. So the speaker does not bring with him on her any notes or manuscript. So when we say memorize, dili jud dapat magdala og mga notes or manuscript because you memorize the words that you speech. So let's go for the advantages of memorized speech. First is it develops a sense of confidence in the speaker. It may improve the speaker's memory. And second advantage of memorized speech is it allows the speaker to connect with the audience and build rapport since he or she can use various delivery strategies and nonverbal cues. Next is the disadvantage of memorized speech. So first is it takes a long time to memorize unless the speaker has a very keen memory. So the second disadvantage of memorized speech is it requires more effort to speak from a memory than to read from a manuscript. So third is it can sound mechanical or unnatural since the speaker concentrates on remembering what comes next rather on communicating the ideas to the ideas. Last disadvantage of memorized speech is it can break a speaker's train of thought and may cause embarrassment if he or she forgets certain words or lines in the speech. So, ma-embarrass jud ka when you forget the certain words or lines in the speech, no? So, tips on delivering a memorized speech. First is keep it short. Second is practice. Third is visualize. And the fourth is project your voice. And last is use appropriate pauses. So, now let's go for the next topic, the argumentation and debate. So, a debate is an organized argument or a contest of ideas in which the participants discuss a topic from two opposing sides. Argumentation and debate. So, those who agree with these statements or idea are the pro side. And those who will not agree with this statement or idea are the con side. So, each side will show in an organized and clever way why they believe to have the right answers. So, last is they will use examples and evidence to support their ideas while working toward the conclusions. And also, the aim of a debate is to convince the opposition that you are right. And the last is when the two sides are agree on the subject, or when one side's arguments are more convincing than the other side, that is when the debate ends. There are two types of debate. So first is the formal. So this type of debate is held in formal settings such as school and tournaments or competitions, House of Representatives, and the Senate. And the second type of debate is informal. So these do not follow any formal structure. In fact, it could just be like common argumentation between the two or more people. So next is the skills needed in debate. So first is reading. So a successful reader is a wide beater because as you read, you can get more knowledge and concepts on how to defend your point. Second is speaking. So if you are a bookworm, it will automatically manifest the way you speak. And the third is writing. So crafting your speeches will just be easy once your brain is full of ideas. So last is the listening. It is important among all skills because you need to listen your co-debaters or opponents to challenge the arguments they made. So the last topic will be the speeches for special occasions. So before we proceed to our next discussion, let's just have first the objectives. So at the end of the discussion, the student should be able to define what is speech in special occasions, determine the three broad classification of special occasions speeches. Last is know the different types of speeches under the three broad classifications. So, introductions. Speech is human vocal communication using language. It is how we say sounds and words. It also refers to informal talk given to an audience. So, what does speeches in special occasions mean? Several occasions call for a speaker to give speech that creates goodwill, that inspired or entertain. Each of these messages requires the same preparation, organizations, and audience analysis as the other speeches. Each also requires the effective use of the basic speech principles of good thought, language, gestures, voice, and delivery. There are three broad classifications of speeches delivered on special occasions. First is speeches of courtesy. Second is speeches of commemoration. And the after-dinner speech that will be discussed in this report. First, let's go for speeches of courtesy. So, there are speeches given to perform appropriate acts of courtesy and goodwill on public occasions such as introducing a speaker, welcoming a guest, responding to the welcome, presenting a gift or an award, or saying farewell at ceremony. All these have a common element of a goodwill and friendliness that becomes a focal point or purpose. A speech of courtesy must brief, so it must present interesting facts and new materials, and it must reveal a pleasant relationship, personal or of the organization you represent. So presenting positive and favorable information about the courtesy is marked by a gracious and pleasant mood and may have a large close wit and humor. So next is the speeches under speeches of courtesy, the speech of introductions. So in introduction, a speaker get the goodwill of speaker and listeners. Get the audience ready to listen and put the lowing will help bring about these speakers in favorable position. Second is speech of welcome. So the formal reception of an important person or a group calls for an appropriate speech. The object of the course is to say with the fact and taste, we are glad you are here. So next is the response to the speech of welcome. So the response cannot be independent either in though or tone from the address of welcome. So at least at the beginning, whether the responding speaker likes it or not, he must speak up the line thought, the dignity level, the tone of humor, and the graciousness of the welcome address. Speech of presentation. So the speech of presentation is a speech that acknowledges the recipient's attainment in order that he may be praised and congratulate. It creates goodwill between the donor and the recipients and stimulates others to appreciate the achievement at the same time that it impels them to greater effort or conduct. Therefore, a speaker presents a word in such manner that will generate good emotional response on the part of the audience, a feeling of fair play, respect for the judges, and personal satisfaction. Speech of acceptance. An acceptance speech follows presentation speech. It should be natural, sincere, and spontaneous. Speech of farewell. So a ceremony may be given in honor of a person who has rendered long services with an institution, who has had many accomplishments, and who is retiring or leaving the institutions. Although he is glad to go, there are regrets for what will be left behind. The person leaving therefore should give expression and pay tribute to this. Let's go for the speech of commemoration. So this consists of memorial speeches of person, events, and institutions. The purpose of this speech is to pay tribute. Therefore, the speaker is advised not to change his views on or behavior, but to testify to the achievement and honor to whom the memorial is given. In this way, he steers and create emotion. Example of this is the eulogy, anniversary speech, dedication, inauguration, and nomination, and commencement address. So next is the speeches under speeches of commemoration. So first is the eulogy. So in this commemorative speech, tribute is given to the service and character of declared person. So for example, in eulogy is burial. Maghatag kag speech kung unsa siya tumbuhi pa, just like. The second is the anniversary speech. So this speech commemorates an event or action of the past, such as Independence Day, Thanksgiving Day, National Heroes Day, and Centennials and Founders Day. The third is the dedication speech. So occasion for ceremony and speeches of dedication are the opening of a new building and public center, laying cornerstone, and unveiling of monuments and memorials. The theme stresses the importance of the day or event, and the purposes is to pay the tribute to the achievement and the persons responsible for such achievement. This speech also arouses loyalty, pride, and patriotism. For example, kanang namoy bagong balay, tapos kanang ipa-blessingan, just like that. And inauguration speech. So the inauguration speech is given a public ceremony of someone entering office. So this may be formal or informal. It may be a stately ceremony like the inauguration of a president, or an informal occasion such as the installation of new club officers or a new corporate president. So the theme of the speech flows from the occasions: a change of administration, the old departs with dignity and usually with honor, the new ones take ups and takes task with buoyancy and hope. Nomination speech. A speech of the reason for his nomination. The nomination is given at political convention announcing the nominee and nomination. Understandable naman ni ang nomination speech, guys. The after dinner speech. This given at a banquet for the special purpose of relaxation and enjoyment. So the purpose of such a speech is entertainment, but it must be accompanied by a message or thought worth remembering. The good after dinner speeches uses humor, presence, vivid examples, and gives a lively treatment of an idea. So in this speech, the treatment of the subject is more important than the subject itself. Plan the opening remarks with special care because they set of the mood of the audience. Observe the limit of in doubt. Prepare a speech of 5 to 10 minutes. So the purposes of speeches in special occasions. The goal of a special occasion speech is ultimately to stir an audience emotions and make them feel a certain way in response to the situation or occasions. These are the also type of speeches given to mark the significance of a specific events. So next is the summary and the conclusions. So give a speech especially on special occasions allows you to address a group of people to express your thoughts and oftentimes your opinion. You can find speeches in many different environments and with many different purposes. Also, a special occasion is speeches are interesting and direct. Unlike a lot of other speeches, it doesn't require the use of statistic or data.